Terrific opening session.
Oh, thank you.
I sat in the back and had a chance to listen to the group for the last hour.
It was really interesting.
It was a great way
right?
to start the day.
A lot of people brought up this, so that the session was called Retail Bricks versus Clicks, right? And a few folks had an issue with the title. They said it's not zero sum, it's and, right? What do you make of that?
Well, we think and is a really important word, and we have for a long time now. I mean, Target's been in business since 1962, same year that Walmart and Kohl's started. And we've always had this unique relationship with the consumer. In fact, it was the consumer that came up with the phrase Target. And
is that still a cool phrase?
We still like to hear that.
Okay.
But
just checking.
We've been talking about and for a long time. You know, our brand promise, our brand positioning has always been around expect more and pay less.
Right.
We've always tried to combine the best of mass with specialty. And the mass side starts with a $70 billion company, 1,800 stores, 30 million shoppers a week, over 50 million checking our site. So blending the mass and the specialty component that we think we bring with unique items, with how we merchandise different categories. So we've been focused on the and for a long time. But sitting here today, I think it's more important than ever.
Yeah.
Because we've recognized that we've got to embrace both physical and digital.
Right.
We try to combine our style credibility and household essentials. So combining these different components, really important. And we think about the importance of and all the time.
So I don't know if you folks know this. So you've been reforming the company essentially, just completely redoing everything. And there was nothing more kind of indicative of that to me than the new store you opened up just a few blocks away from Fortune's headquarters in Tribeca, which is not exactly an impoverished neighborhood, I would say. What is Target doing in Tribeca, of all places? Why are you in Bobby De Niro's neighborhood?
Well, as we thought about the future of our company, it starts with understanding the consumer. And we recognize across the United States, consumers are moving back to urban centers. So last year, we opened up dozens of smaller formats in Manhattan, in Philadelphia, in Chicago, in downtown San Francisco, on college campuses. And we're simply following the consumer. So as we thought about reinventing Target, really making sure that we can contemporize it for today's retail environment, we're placing some big bets. I talked about this in February at our financial conference. We're going to invest $7 billion over the next couple of years to enhance experience, to build better relationships with our guests, to stand up brands, and importantly, to invest in fulfillment. So you'll see us remodel over 600 stores over the next couple of years, open up 100 new small formats, invest in great new brands, a big investment in our digital capabilities, and importantly, in today's environment, invest in fulfillment, so that we can meet the needs of today's consumer, no matter how they want to shop.
Can you explain to me kind of the thinking with the small format? I mean, I know you're following your customer, but is it fair to call Target a big box store still?
Well, we want to have flexibility.
Yeah.
So the big box model is going to continue to evolve over time, but we want to have the flexibility to make sure that if you live in Tribeca or in Brooklyn, where we're also opening up new, smaller stores, some days we know you're going to shop that store. Other days you're at your desk, you're going to click and want to come by at 6 o'clock and collect. In the future, I expect you're going to pull up, and some days you want to put that bag right in your trunk.
Sure.
And we're using our stores today, over 1,000 of them, as flexible fulfillment centers, where we pick, pack, and work with UPS or FedEx to deliver the last mile. So we're thinking about the stores very differently. Really the creation of a smart network where our stores allow you to shop, return, which is also important in today's environment, but you can pick up, or we can use that store as the local fulfillment center. And fortunately, we're within 10 miles of 85% of the US population.
Pretty good.
So being in the neighborhood has a huge advantage going forward.
Are there particular challenges with doing fulfillment in a extremely dense city like New York. When I saw that Tribeca store, I just thought, man, like, how do you even get goods in and out of this thing? The streets are, 17th century.
Yeah. Well, it's some of the work we're doing right now. I think about some of the projects that we're unfolding.
Yeah.
And I was just in Tribeca last Friday,
Sure.
getting an update. So in Tribeca, we know that for many of what we call our guests, they're going to come in and shop, but they really don't have a car or a way to get that package or packages home. So we now offer a delivery service that says, all right, you completed your purchase, you paid for it, now tell us where you live and pick a time and I'll deliver it right to your home. So I get back to fulfillment's so important going forward.
Yeah.
But having that smart network and being in your neighborhood gives us the flexibility to meet the different choices that you may have.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to the network because it's fascinating. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing to transform the company, right? You lost a chief innovation officer, something like that, recently. You canceled, kind of pulled the plug on this kind of store of the future effort. I know you're pushing innovation, and yet these things are happening. Connect the dots for me.
Sure. Well, I think across our entire company, we're asking every member of our team to embrace innovation. But first, to embrace the consumer and really understand the consumer trends, how they're shopping, their expectations from Target, and how do we make sure we're innovating across our entire enterprise. So when I think about remodeling 600 stores, we're testing and learning, and we'll iterate over several years, continue to bring the best of Target to the guest.
What was one surprise that you learned?
Well, I think I've learned a lot, and I've made a lot of mistakes.
Sure.
So I think about some of the things that we were working on. And we had some great experiences with entrepreneurs that we had brought in and gave them some seed money and said, all right, go think about the future. Unfortunately, they were drifting out to another universe. And we had to reel things back in and say, all right, innovation has to first start with what is our guest expecting from Target, and how does it help our core enterprise? And what are the things that we can do to build a stronger brand? So we're directing a lot more of our innovation energy towards strengthening the company,
Yeah.
meeting the needs of the consumer, being much more competitive as we go forward. But if you walk around our business today, if you wander through our enterprise, we're embracing machine learning. We're very engaged from a CGI standpoint.
Sure.
We have PhDs sitting in our Northern California office. Every time I go there, I lower the IQ. But we're working on the future and embracing technology, embracing innovation, but really trying to funnel it into our core enterprise to meet the needs of our guests each and every week.
Let me ask our audience here. How many people struggle with executing on innovation in your company? How to do it, just how to actually do it. Okay, just a handful. You mentioned, I can't remember where you said it, but you said you want a faster payoff for your technology investments, and you just mentioned a few of them. Give me a little bit on the thinking behind that.
Well,
is that the way to go about innovation?
I think we've got to approach it in a number of different ways.
Yeah.
And clearly, we want a regular pipeline of innovation. But we've also been very focused as a team. And we spent a lot of time thinking about, over the next 3 to 5 years, what are the elements that we absolutely need to make sure we master? And we think experience for anyone in retail today is critically important, both from a physical standpoint and a digital standpoint. In this morning's session, we talked about what's happening with today's consumer.
It's complicated.
And the focus on experience. Sure. And we know that they're spending more money on experience than ever before. When I talked to the chief economist for MasterCard right after the holidays, her summary of the holiday season was the biggest gift of this holiday season was the gift of travel. And across the country, it wasn't just millennials, it was the general population was giving away those airline tickets or the voucher to come to Aspen to go ski. So we know experience is important, but we also know experience in store is really important.
Right.
And from a digital standpoint, we have to offer a great experience. So we're making a major investment there. We know brands in this environment are still important to the guest. So we're investing in our own brands, but also making sure we're building great partnerships with our vendors and ensuring we're curating great brands on behalf of our guests.
Yeah.
And I keep coming back to the importance of fulfillment. And so much of our energy right now and innovation is taking place in completely reimagining how we fulfill both our store needs,
Right.
but also our direct-to-consumer needs.
Right. You mentioned the PhDs in that office. How is this push changing the way you hire? Give me a little bit on talent, skills. Are you looking for different kinds of skills? What kind of people does Target hire now in 2017 and beyond?
Well, if you look inside of our organization today, I think what I'm most proud of is the team we have in place. And the fact that we have a great combination of team members who have grown up at Target, who understand the business cold, who understand our consumer, but we've also brought in subject matter experts from the outside who can help us think differently about how we merchandise our stores, how we talk to consumers, how we fulfill orders, how we make decisions each and every day. So back to the and word.
Yeah.
Retail at its best is a combination of both art and the science. So data analytics, critically important for anyone.
Sure.
And we're leveraging those capabilities to help us make better decisions. Where do we open up that next store? How do we support our brands? How do we connect best with today's consumer? What are the warehouse management systems we need to be more agile and fulfill products the way the guest wants? So we're trying to make sure we have great talent that understands retail,
Yeah.
understands the consumer, but can help us, can help me think about tomorrow.
Sure. So I told you I'd come back to the fulfillment and all that, right? So Amazon Whole Foods. You know I was going to ask about this. Amazon Whole Foods, big deal. Everything's changing. If nothing more, there are a lot of takeaways from a deal like that, but clearly it's indicative that retail itself is changing. Where does Target fit in, right? Because all the narrative since that deal has been Amazon versus Walmart, right? Which is the number one retailer. Where do you fit in? How do you look at that as everyone discusses that deal?
Well, as you might imagine, we spent a lot of time talking about this topic. And I'd start, Andrew, by saying it wasn't a surprise that that deal took place for us. But what it did do is really validate what we've been talking about for almost 4 years now. And that is that in today's environment, stores still matter. And even for Amazon, I think there's a recognition that a physical store and proximity is important to the consumer. I mean, we're seeing rapid growth online. And for the last couple of years, we've been growing every quarter at 25 or 30%. But as we sit here today in a technology conference and talk about the future of retail, today, almost 90% of all retail in the United States is still done at a physical store. So I get asked the question all the time, Brian, 5 years from now, what's that going to look like? And I don't know if it's going to be 85-15 or 80-20, but for the foreseeable future, stores are still going to play an important role. So you're seeing a lot of changes. Year to date, I think the current number is 5,300 stores have closed in the US. We know what's happening with malls. The landscape is changing. And for me, I recognize that we've got to be thinking about tomorrow. But tomorrow includes physical stores and a great digital connection with the guest. And I think the Amazon Whole Foods announcement just validates that even for Amazon, they recognize a physical presence is going to play a role in their future.
So if that wasn't a surprise to you, where does that leave Target? Where do you stand? Are you an acquisition target? No pun intended. Can you compete with that? Wow, you guys really laughed at that one. Okay. Man, dad jokes on point. Truly, though, where does that leave you? Do you worry that you're going to be outmaneuvered now that that company combined is so much larger?
Yeah. So I'm going to come back to that important word, and.
Yeah.
And I think we're uniquely positioned today because we have a physical presence. We're adapting that presence into new urban settings. We have a rapidly growing digital business and a great social connection with the guest. Every day, there are thousands and thousands of US consumers that are tweeting about their Target experience. They're posting things on Facebook. They're building YouTube videos for us. So we have physical and digital. We have this unique combination of both style and a place you can shop for household essentials. We have this combination of both mass and specialty. And we're one of the few multi-category players in our space. So we're not a food retailer, although it's 20% of our business.
Sure.
We're not an apparel or home retailer, although we have a $26 billion home and apparel business. We're not an electronics retailer, although we have a sizable business and a great relationship with people like Apple and Samsung and Google.
Right.
So we have this unique multi-category blend. If you want to shop for cosmetics, we're going to bring that to life for you. When we see it's swim season, we can stand those categories up. Right now, I would actually tell you, this week, we're probably a back to college and back to school retailer. And millions of Americans are in our stores shopping for their back to school supplies, or actually going to Target.com and building their back to college list. So the versatility of our model, the multi-category nature, and our ability to fulfill that both from a physical and a digital standpoint, it makes us very unique in the market.
Yeah.
And we've got the agility to lean into trends, to lean into different categories when the time is right, and also know when to back away and say, you know what, we need to overinvest in trends that are emerging and take advantage of the trends we're seeing in the US marketplace. So I think we're uniquely positioned.
Okay.
We have this scale business, $70 billion, lots of stores across the United States. We're in your neighborhood.
You are.
We can now deliver any way you want. And if you order something from Target.com, and if you buy apparel online, most of you probably know, 40% of it gets returned. Well, we're right there in your neighborhood. If you didn't like the color, you can conveniently come by and we'll change it for you.
Sure.
So we think we have this unique relationship with the US consumer, and that's been true for a long time.
Okay. I'm going to come to the audience in a second for questions, so please prepare yourselves. I wanted to step back a little bit. You talked about failings, right? E-commerce, still a tough business for you. Walmart is still a really tough competitor. Where have you failed when it's come to e-commerce?
Well, I think we were slow to the party, and we've caught up pretty quickly. So if I think about bright spots in our business, our digital business is approaching $4 billion. We've been growing at 25 or 30%. You start doing that math quarter after quarter, it starts to become a scale business. We've been very innovative from a digital standpoint, and we've made dramatic improvements in replatforming our site. We're testing something called Target Restock, which allows consumers to find a box, fill it with those household essentials, and we'll deliver it to your doorstep. And we're seeing a great reaction to that. Changes we've made in our site, something we talked about this morning, or you talked about in your session. With CGI, we can now let our guests upload a picture of their bedroom or their living room, and then decide, do I like that couch?
Right.
How will that chair look? How do those pillows look? So we're making rapid enhancements. And we're backing that up with a major investment in fulfillment.
Right.
So you can go to our site, have a great experience, but then you decide how quickly you want it, and we can get it there.
Nice. All right, let's go to the audience. Questions, please. Hands. Yes, way in the back over there.
Lots of hands.
I see you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Please introduce yourself.
Sure thing. Stephen Wolf Pereira from Newstar. Brian, in the 2015 investor conference, you said that the Hispanic guest will be the most important guest to drive growth in retail, and specifically for Target. How has that changed over time, given all the investments that you've been doing to connect with Hispanic and also the multicultural market?
Yeah. Well, we continue to see the Hispanic consumer being a very important part of our future. We've got a great relationship with Hispanic families, and we're continuing to invest. If you look at our current media campaign, you'll see a really important balance between our general population campaign and a very focused effort to continue to build that relationship with the Hispanic consumer. But we're also looking carefully at what's happening with Hispanic consumers in America right now. And if there's one thing that's concerning to me and should be concerning to a lot of us, is a recognition that over the last few months, the Hispanic consumer in the US is shopping much less. I think the actual numbers are down 11%.
Why is it?
And there's almost a cocooning factor. They are staying at home. They're going out less often. And particularly along border towns in the United States, you're seeing a change in behavior. So we're spending a lot of time thinking about, all right, how do we connect with that Hispanic guest? How do we address some of the concerns that they have? But we've seen a significant change, as everyone in retail has, with the way the Hispanic consumer in the United States has been shopping in 2017.
Great question. Yes, right here in the middle.
Yes, Michael Miller, Ziff Brothers Investments and PC Magazine. Before you got there, Target had a very well-publicized security breach and all of that. Obviously, you've been there for a few years now. Can you explain a little bit about what you have done to correct the problems and how you're feeling about security these days?
So I walked in right after our data security breach.
Lucky you.
And it was one of those experiences that I get a chance to share quite often, because everyone wants to talk about the learning and the changes that we had to make. And first and foremost, for me, my leadership team, our board, it's a major area of focus. Every single day, 52 weeks a year. We've made significant capital investments to ensure that we have the state-of-the-art technology in place. We brought amazing subject matter expertise into what we call our Cyber Fusion Center. And we're constantly focused on how do we monitor, detect, contain any issues on the cyber front. But for anyone in the room here today, you know that these threats are ongoing. They're not going away. The bad guys are only getting smarter, and we've got to continue to raise the bar. So it's a major area of focus for us, and we spend a lot of time sharing our knowledge, talking to other companies about what we've done, but it is something that you have to focus on every single day, and all of us know that we're constantly under attack. So we've got to have the best technology, the best people, and always be focused on how do we monitor, detect, and contain the bad guys that are out there.
All right. Yes, over here, please.
Dan Oberkeem with FabFitFun. I love what you're doing on using the Target stores as fulfillment centers and improving the supply chain. But we've recently seen companies like Walmart go out and buy their way into e-commerce platforms like Jet and vertical brands like ModCloth and Bonobos. And then recently saw your investment in Casper, and I'm wondering if you could speak to beyond the supply chain in terms of how you're thinking about whether investing in platforms or offering new sort of e-commerce models or investing in vertical brands, and how you guys are thinking about that.
Well, it's a great question. I see Philip sitting right behind you. And we're continuing to think about how we really provide a home for some great digital brands, digital retailers who now recognize that they need a physical space to continue to build and grow their brand. So I get to know Philip and Casper very well over the last few months. We spent a lot of time together. And I had great admiration for the brand, their vision around the sleep ecosystem, the type of leadership team that Philip developed, and their vision for the future. And we think it's a great collaboration and partnership where it complements our core business, our focus on home, on baby and kids, our connection with college students. So we think there's a great combination where we both end up winning. And we open up our doors for the Casper brand to have a presence in a physical location. And together we're going to continue to learn and grow. But we've also had some other great examples over time. We were in talks for a number of months with Jeff Rader at Harry's. And Jeff built a great model in razors. His subscription program has certainly performed very well. But Jeff and I started talking about the fact that, our target guest and the Harry's brand consumer, well, a lot of compatibility. So we opened up 1,800 doors to Jeff and Harry's, and we've seen a tremendous reaction from our guests. And I think if you had Jeff here, he'd say a great partnership. So we've been partnering with startup companies for years. If you go back 15 years ago, a couple of guys in San Francisco in a garage trying to think about how they could create safer, more environmentally friendly cleaning products. And we spent a lot of time with Eric Ryan bringing the Method brand to life. And today, it's a major national brand, although we're still the biggest partner they have in the US. And we feel like we help co-create some of those brands and take great brands, great startup vendors, and use our understanding of the guest, our physical and now digital assets to bring these brands to life.
Is that a role that you see Target having, just to be a brand cultivator like that?
We do. I talk about brands are really important. We are building our own brands, and we've launched several new brands recently that we feel really proud of. We launched a brand last year for kids called Cat and Jack. It's on its way to being a multi-billion-dollar brand in a little over a year. It'll end up being our biggest own brand as we go into 2018. But then we have partnerships with smaller companies that look at Target and look at the kind of guest and consumer we attract and say, all right, what a great place to build my brand. So we want to be a home for brands, and we want to balance, and back to the and word, our own brand portfolio with the curation of great national and regional and local brands that allow us to meet what our consumers are looking for.
It's not about zero sum, it's everything, isn't it, in today's retail environment?
Well, and I think in today's retail environment, partnerships are really important. We can't do everything ourselves. We're very selective about who we partner with. We spent a lot of time with Philip. I personally spent a lot of time in his office getting to know him and his team. But once we got to know them and recognized the values, the vision, what they had done, the way they had built this brand with such care, we said, all right, this is the kind of company we want to be a part of.
Sure.
So we don't use that word lightly. And we're very selective about our partners. But partners are very important today, and they'll be even more important going forward.
Target's making moves. All right, could you please applause for Mr. Brian Cornell? Thank you.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Yes.